Every time Family Wellness gets to be at your conference, we are delighted. We got to know a bunch of you in Long Beach, and then I got to travel east a bit, and I met a bunch of you in Chicago. And so it's really good to be all together again. I wanted to thank Penelope and Cristo on the committee that got us all assembled to do this. So thank you for your good work, and all the behind the scenes people, thank you. And the team here, we have a larger team, but definitely here's the heartbeat of the team. The Pappas is here. Before Family Wellness was ever a thing, they were doing family wellness in the church. And they were doing it tirelessly through their whole ministry, doing things that other parishes weren't doing so that they could meet the needs of people. Then some few years later, Sagalakisis, when the term family wellness was a thing, they were doing incredible things in the Northwest. And so for this to evolve, and now for the years that I've been part of the team, we as a team want to let you know we're honored to be in your midst, and we really do want to say a couple things today on a topic that means a lot to us. Our topic today is called Getting Love Right. We believe, and maybe you've noticed it, that there's something within our hearts that gives us an absolute, almost magnet for the need to connect with other people. In fact, we can say we're created for connection. It's something that, whether we like it or not, or access it or not, or noticed it or not, it's going to be happening. Something happens within you, and it's a kind of idea that when you connect with people, you feel more alive. And if ever there's ever been time where you're sort of disconnected or isolated, you don't feel quite yourself. And in fact, in the world of, because many of us are marriage family therapists on the team, and in the whole area of mental health, and I know that some students are out there studying in the mental health field. You will be on our team when you're needing any kind of hours or whatever you need, because what we know in mental health is when we're isolated is when our symptoms show up. We all have issues, but if you want your issues to get worse, stay isolated. Because we're created for connection, and when we're connected, we find health and we find wellness. So this idea of created for connection, getting love right. So since we have that magnet within us, we're going to be pulled toward connection. The first question I just want to pose before you, and we're just going to spend about 30 minutes sharing some ideas with you. Then we're going to have lunch, and then we're all going to be part of a panel to answer any and all questions you have. And then after that, some minutes in breakout groups in other rooms. So for these minutes, in this idea of getting love right, and knowing that that magnet's within you, you're going to be pulled toward connecting. It is the first question I want to just pose out there, and that is, you're going to connect. Do you want a healthy relationship? Because that part's optional. The healthy part is optional. Relationships, you're going to fall into them and out of them. How healthy you want it is really up to you, and what our intention in these minutes is for us to consider some things that could help us understand how we can get love right. So with that said, I want to just mention that you've already been on your journey. Now, I don't know when, the love path started for you. I happened to be 13 when I got my first kiss. And it wasn't just any kind of kiss, and this table can't listen to this part. It was actually a French kiss, okay? Because in the world of boys at 30, right? No, I know. Totally, man, I had it going on. And so, but I was in the world of, you knew you were going to get your kiss, but you always heard about this thing called French kiss. And you knew that it involved tongues, right? Yeah, okay. So I think the moment was happening. I thought the kiss was coming. So you're kind of going, it might happen. It happened in the back of the school bus on our way home from a flag football team, a game. In 8th grade, we had flag football teams. And Cindy Smith, this is not recorded, is it? Because Cindy might be listening. No. But she was a little 8th grade cheerleader. And so she sat next to me. That was the first sign that my journey toward love was going to be happening. Okay? and then the arm went around, and then the bus did that, which allowed my head to kind of flop over toward hers. And then we kissed, and then the moment happened, and that amazing journey of, and I was thinking to myself, so this is what it's like. Oh my God. So anyway, so at 13 and a half, started my little journey of trying to get love right. I thought I got it kind of right that day, by the way, just in case you're wondering. So, but we all started our journey somewhere, somehow. Now, what I want us to do is, from about 14 to 24, by the way, is kind of sort of a kind of data collecting. It's usually during that decade where we're trying to get love right, and we go from experience to experience, and whatever happens in those years, if you can remember 14, 15, 16, what was going on, what you're thinking, how much you were back here, how much you were out there. But during those years, you've had your story already evolving. You guys are my data scientists. You guys have been collecting data on this journey of trying to get love right. Now, I don't know about you, but the one thing I've noticed on the journey of trying to get love right, it is filled with experiences of what? Getting love wrong. How many times do we have experiences of getting love wrong? What happens when love goes wrong? Because if we think about all those years up till maybe about now, we don't come all equipped with every insight possible. And in fact, we're going to unpack a couple points on maybe what derails us a little bit, that bumps us toward getting love wrong. But what I want to ask you guys, because you've been collecting data, I've been doing it since 13 and a half, you've been doing it from whatever age. In your table group, I'm just going to ask you one question, give you a few minutes. How do you know that you're getting love wrong? What are the signs that you're getting love wrong? When you get love wrong, what happens in that relationship, okay? So I don't know if we have any experts on that, but I think we've all been learning along the way. When you get love wrong, what do you notice? What happens when you get love wrong? Table group, ready, set, go, talk to your people. Who wants to just throw it when you get love wrong? What's true about that relationship? What do you know happens when you get love wrong? What's an example? Anyone? When you get love wrong, yeah.
I said that you lose yourself as a person, you lose your identity, and you lose what makes you.
Okay, so getting love wrong, you lose yourself. You're so into it, then you think that to be in this, I have to almost erase myself, almost like not make a wrong move, and it's all about the other. And we get lost, lose who we really are. Very good answer. Yeah. Okay, do we want mics? Please don't want to run it around. Hold on, hold your answer right there. Yeah, right over there. So this mic's coming on. For our son, yeah.
Yeah, I was saying maybe the flip side, when you do it the other way around and you're too selfish and you do things too much for yourself.
Yep.
Love is not supposed to be one-sided.
Okay, good.
Just for you.
So notice, look at our data scientists are already coming in with great research. So, right, so we have, you can get love wrong when you totally lose yourself, erase yourself, don't count yourself valuable enough, and put all the value on the other, you get lost. Or if you think too highly of yourself than you ought, then it's all about you, and then you sort of eclipse the needs or the wants or even the heart of the other person. Great examples of getting love wrong. A couple more. Anyone else? Getting love wrong. What's an example? All right, in the back, right there, and the microphone's coming to you. Yeah. All right, Sammer, is that Sammer? Yeah. No, coming over there. Yeah. What do you got?
Oh, sorry. When you start losing trust in the person you're with.
Okay,
Good one.
trust. Very good. You know, what's so great about these answers is not only data scientists, but you could tell they've had the lived experience, right? Because that's what teaches us is these lived experiences. So then trust, either we've got issues from trusting and we don't attach enough, or we have issues with trusting and we get too attached and get possessive and get jealous and get controlling, because we know in behavioral science that fear leads to control. Very good. So we're seeing some great examples. One more. Is there one more? Yeah, right behind you, or right there and then behind you. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think when you start to isolate yourself from people, like your family and your
Oh.
close friends, because you know that they don't agree with a relationship
Oh.
or that they are telling you and they're pointing out things that are wrong in that
Wow.
relationship. So you isolate yourself, you put yourself in your own world with that person
Yes.
because nothing can touch you in that bubble.
Yes. So, hey, listen up, guys. Check that one out. I call that the love bubble. And when you enter that love bubble, it's like, it's so nice in here. I don't know why my best friends don't like them. And my parents are totally insane. And no one understands what we have. And then and that bubble isolates you and gets you crazy. So great answer. And then, Christo, I think there's someone right behind you right there. Yeah. And that'll be the last one.
You start sacrificing parts of yourself and everything you love for the person you love to make them happy.
Right. So there's kind of it's kind of like in Toy Story when they had to give away the favorite toys. Remember that in Toy Story when that's sad? When we get love wrong, we give away parts of ourselves. We lose ourselves. And so very good data work, you guys. And so, Christo, as you put the microphone away, I want to invite you up on the stage, actually, young man. Christo Shorts from New Jersey. Yeah. You know, right? Yeah, welcome. You know, I don't know if you know, he's a good buddy of mine. So we've met at every YAL conference, and he became my BFF because in Chicago, he came up to me and told me what he got out of my talk, the 3 points he got out of my talk in Long Beach a couple of years before. Anyone who remembers what I say becomes my BFF. So we bonded right there. So I've asked Christo because Christo is on a journey to love. Did you know that? He's looking for love, right? No, of course he is. Of course he is. So, yeah. Okay, good, right? So like all of us, we have a heart, and so we want to actually make our first point here. Right, no, so this is going to work, guys. So check this out. So our first point is that if we're wanting to, remember what's our topic? Getting love right. This idea of getting love right is a kind of love where we come from our heart. Now, one of the things that we discover in our hearts all along through those early years, the insecure middle school years, all through those times where we're kind of wondering who we are and we start doubting who we are, is that what we know in about human behavior is not only do we have a heart, something that's embedded in all of our hearts, you may have noticed this, is that we have a pulsating question mark. All of us have this pulsating question mark that I call, and this is what our whole being, what our heart is asking, what I call the value question. George, what's the value question? What I say the value question is that we're all looking for the answer to the value question. Who am I and what am I worth? Who am I and what? And you could be around toddlers. You could go to a preschool. You can go to kindergarten. You can go to junior high. You can go to grad schools, and we're walking around this pulsating question mark. In all those stages in life, we're looking for the answer on who are we and what are we worth? It's a very personal, intimate, vulnerable question. It's meant, now, if we're placed in the perfect family, in the perfect world, then we get really good answers to who we are and what we're worth. Last I checked, we weren't placed in perfect families, nor do we live in a perfect world, and we're generations down from Adam and Eve, the first family. They kind of got love wrong way back then, and it's been kind of derailing since. So all kinds of factors play into that value question. What's the value question? Who am I? What am I worth? We're looking for the answer. Remember that magnet of connection? We kind of have that same need to find the answer. Who am I and what am I worth? If we've been, and just as a for instance, if someone grows up with a critical parent, now first of all, if you grow up with a critical parent, guess what? That critical parent doesn't think they're critical. They think they're helpful, okay? So all I'm saying is, like, even people who love us try to get it right. It doesn't even mean they get it right all the time. But let's say it becomes critical. That would just be a small example of, oh, what am I and who am I? What am I worth? Oh, I guess I didn't do that good enough. Whatever the source is, and certainly in our bigger fast lane youth culture that goes on, and fast lane world that we're in, very often this pulsating question mark gets broken answers, gets inappropriate answers, gets a lack of answers. Now, what we're going to do here for a second, first of all, is what the conclusion we draw at some point is the one thing we know is where's the value? Because remember, it's the value question. Where's the value? Somewhere deep down in our pain, we say, I know where it's not. It's not in me. If I'm going to feel okay about myself, I've concluded already it's not enough. We've been hit with the virus of not good enough. So we have the not good enough for the various reasons of our life story. We go outside of our heart. We go on an exit. We find the exit door to our heart, and we go out. The first place we go from our heart, guess where we go? We go to our head. Guess what I call the head? This place up here, the head is, I just made it up this morning. I'm going to find it. I did. I kind of liked it. I'm going to find it. I'm going to find it. Maybe I won't. But what happens up here basically is I've left the heart where all of life happens. I've gone up here, and what happens up here is this zone of not finding where you actually are. So we get up here, and we go into either the past or the future. So in the past, we get up here, and we think about how we get it wrong all the time. When we go to the future, we get afraid of how we might get it wrong in the future. So what happens with symptoms is we get in our head enough. Where do we leave? We left our heart, got in our head. We go to the past, and we get kind of depressed. We go to the future, and we get anxious. So now on this exit out of our heart, we go into our head for a while. Oh, I know, I just thought of it. I call it the land of overthinking. Have you ever entered the land of overthinking? Have you ever gotten stuck in the land of overthinking? So in our time today, we want to be interested in how we get unstuck from the land of overthinking, how it is we get the journey back to the heart. Now, we don't stop there. We're exiting the heart. We get to the head, land of overthinking. Boom, we get creative. We keep going. Now, let's get one. We keep exiting, and what we have going on is, now remember, it's the value question. Where do I find my value? Not in me. Oh, I know where I could find it. If I get really good at high performance, if I get really good at what I do, if I get really good grades, if I make the gold soccer team, if I have a hot bod that doesn't quit, however you define performance. See what I'm saying? Then, if you define your value by your performance, you've left your heart and you're banking on high performance. Guess what's wrong with high performance? You feel great when you have the high performance. Guess what happens when you don't have high performance? Crash. Guaranteed mood disorder. I feel good about myself when it works. I feel awful about myself when it doesn't. And so then we get stuck into a bondage of trying to define our value through our performance. Now again, because we've exited the heart, we're trying to find that value question. We then go to something really common for all nice, friendly people like you. We go into people pleasing. Have you ever found that the idea of people pleasing, now what are we looking for? We're looking for our value. Now when we look for our value in people pleasing, this would be when you're happy with me, oh, thank God I'm happy with me. When you think I'm okay, oh, thank God I'm okay. Oh, wait a minute, what do they think? I'm not sure I'm okay again. I got to make sure I'm okay over here. The life of a people pleaser is the never-ending sort of dance to make sure you're okay with me because I don't know how to be okay with me in my heart. Now, we don't stop there. We got, let's go right here. Let's throw a little hormone into this. Now, so then, some of us, many of us, on our journey to try to get love right, we happen upon sexual involvement makes us feel, super personal, super like, wow, I'm in it. And so we get to believing because this value question is still pulsating, we're not finding inside, we go outside, and so then we get sometimes hooked into situations that we go to that journey, that destination, the end of that arrow, to find our value through sexual involvement. Now, the classic, go ahead. The classic of this, keep in mind, is if we're not sure how we feel, this is why drugs and alcohol would be just part of this whole program. Why? Because all of this is trying to solve inside problems with outside things. Let me say it again. The premise of addiction is trying to solve inside problems. What's our inside problem? We're not sure we're good enough. We've got this value question not being solved. We get doubting. We're not sure if we're going to make it. We don't know if it's going to work for us. This inside problem. We look to all these outside sources to solve the inside problem. This is the definition of addiction. If we get theological, that's the definition of the passions. The most beautiful, God-given, pulsating need we have inside to be connected and loved is God created. It gets tweaked and cracked and fractured, and it becomes a passion in that we start chasing all over the place.
And cell phones.
And so then we can then make one other point. If this is what we're chasing, and I would even say there's supposed to be a holy version of all these things. Now I'm just going to talk about social media for 1 second, because I think it's unfair when social media gets demonized. Because we might as well become fundamentalists, because we'll demonize sex and we'll demonize all kinds of things, and then we'll all be like in this little box thinking like, okay, to be a believer, I cannot move. I mean, and then we're like, no thanks, peace out. No, it's not for me. It's about redeeming these things. And so I'm just going to say about social media is now social media itself's not the problem. It is that when you try to find your value, try to answer the value question with social media, that's the hook. That's when you get the endorphins because someone gave you a like, or what you posted turned out perfect, you got the angle. However that works, it's like you know how much value you feel with certain posts and how much devalue you feel with others. So again, we're looking at whichever is at the end, and then we'd have one variable arrow here. We could do it this way. Is this, what we're doing today in our personal reflection is, you don't have to relate to all these arrows. You just have to find yours and face yours and figure out what's at the end of your arrow that you're chasing after that gives you a feeling of a fix or value that keeps you away from your heart. So, at this time, I'd like to thank all my prop masters right here. And please start right here. Right on, man. Thanks, dude. Perfect. And by the way, we as a team talked about this because I have all that in a PowerPoint. We said, we don't have the AV here. And we said, okay, we're getting construction paper and felt pens and Christo, and it came together, I think. So anyway. So just a couple more minutes on this value question. The battle of the relationship with ourselves is going on. This idea that we've concluded all too often and all too early in our life that what's in here is not good enough keeps us locked up. We leave our inner life. It helps me think of one of the most powerful gospel readings is what we just did. And I hope every time you come across this gospel reading, you think of all this. The gospel reading is a time when a guy got mixed up with his value, and he said, I'm going to take it. He went to the Father and said, I'm going to take it in my own hands, and I'm going to go get my value somewhere else. It's known as the parable of what? The prodigal son. And he goes to a foreign land. It might be the foreign land of sexual involvement. It might be the foreign land of people-pleasing. It might be the foreign land of performance. And keep in mind, on the whole performance thing, it is one of the most slippery slopes around because we've all been encouraged to have high performance, and that sounds good to me. It's just that when no one was looking, it slipped into being the source of our value. So we're not saying don't go shoot for the stars. We are saying that that is not what defines your value, okay? And so as we think about this and this prodigal going to that foreign land, this idea of, and as I said earlier, we're on a journey toward getting love right, and humbly we find it because we have experiences of getting love wrong. The prodigal found the same thing. He found himself in a pig pen. The pigs were eating better than him, and it said this, great little verse. When he came to himself, he turned toward the Father. When he came to himself and bumped into his own heart, he then asked the real questions: who am I? What am I worth? And how did I get in a pig pen? Asking that honest question, where am I? What's going on for me? This going through the motions thing is a burnout. He turned toward the Father, and then we discover something beautiful, and that is when he was getting love wrong, God was still loving him. And when he had just a presence of mind just to admit, I think they call it repentance, just to admit the truth about himself, he made the turn, and the loving Father came running his way. If you look at the Greek in that, what is described as basically the Father, it says something like, if you read the actual words, it says something like he hooked his neck or something like that. So basically, the Father came and did a headlong dive on the Son. Once the Father saw him coming, the Father did a headlong dive. Keep in mind, in that culture, in Jewish culture, when that story is being told, religious men don't run. If you're holy, you don't run. And here is the holiest of holies hauling toward loving his Son, because the Son showed up heart first. Broken, yes. That didn't stop the Father. Heart first. And so today, in these few thoughts we're sharing with you guys, we're asking you guys to consider this idea of journey back home. Yeah.
Here's the deal. Y'all listening? If we don't get this right, somebody's going to define who you are. And I was talking to a beautiful woman in New Jersey, teaching third grade. And somebody has defined this third grader where he or she wants to kill herself. Tell me about that. What kind of noise are you hearing in your mind, in that heart, that all of a sudden a third grader is going to find out how to kill themselves? You tell me how that happens. It happens exactly in the way George tells you. God did not design us to be deceived. The devil does. And you guys are all in that same place at some level. And if we don't get it right as Orthodox Christians to wake up, to realize that you are created so beautiful, so amazing, and if somebody deceived you into something other, we need to talk. We can have all the dancing, all you want, but this thing that George is talking about, man, it's the real deal. And we got a thirst to really want to know who we are, because you are so beautiful. And if you don't think that, you're being deceived. I just wanted to say that, George, because I had a conversation with someone, and I know someone. She's beautiful, 17-year-old girl, beautiful. She's talented. She's a soccer player. She wants to be a doctor, and she wanted to kill herself 3 times. You figure how that happens. Without judging anyone, not parents, not society, no one. We got to be curious. How does that happen? Sorry.
Awesome. Thank you, Brother Tom. Thank you. And so, as we see, even as Father Tom shares, even when he shares from his heart, we hear it. And as we kind of meet each other from our heart, we hear each other. And so just closing this time, we want you to consider these thoughts, this idea that leapfrogging over our heart becomes a problem. We're asking and inviting that you take the journey back through your heart. In fact, St. John Chrysostom says, when you find the gate to the heart is when you find the gate to the kingdom of heaven. when you find the gate to the heart. So as you take that courageous journey back to yourself, and you might have to wear boots or something, because you have to step in messy feelings and messy things you haven't figured out as you go to the honesty of what's going on for you. And I just observe all these cool friendships as you rally with friends who are friends of your heart. Together, you can be heart to heart. And we say in Family Wellness, face to face, heart to heart, that you take this journey back home, you turn with your heart. And I'll just close with this. The journey to the heart ends up being one of the most humble, required journeys we take. It's humbling because we have to take a look at what's really going on. Saint Silouan, he's my favorite guy in the saint thing, is he says, the pure in heart see the mysteries of God. The pure in heart see the mysteries of God. So as you take your journey to your heart, and as St. John Chrysostom says, you open that door, not only, and we might be afraid of what we're going to find, and I appreciate the question about being afraid to go to confession. Love the question, and love the question that came right after that question. I don't know where those two people are, because you're like rock stars, because you ask questions from your heart. Here's the beautiful part, that when you open the gate to your heart, and we do that in confession, whoo, scary. I remember going in my baseball uniform in 10, 11 years old to confession, because the church was in San Francisco, Holy Trinity was near the baseball field. I'd go in there, and my knees were shaking, and I would think my brother and I would decide, okay, what are you going to confess? Say you swear a lot. Okay, that's the good one, right? Because that was like the acceptable, non-vulnerable thing to confess. And I've been struggling with confession ever since on how vulnerable do I get? But as I enter into that scary space and open up that door to my heart where all the scary stuff is dwelling, then guess what? As we open the gate to the heart, it opens up the gate to the kingdom of heaven, and another human being gets to prove through their unconditional love for us that there is unconditional love for us. Okay? So with that said, I do believe we're going to be transitioning to lunch, and so we're lunchtime. Good. Thanks, guys.
So what we want to do, remember, we talked about getting love right. We talked about how it often will reflect on what we learn while we sometimes get love wrong. And everything in between that is relationship questions that you guys have. It could be in response to something you heard when we were talking a few minutes ago, and it could be just a relationship question that you have. All right, so let me just, once it gets quiet, we'll get started.
And while George is getting our attention, I think it's important to know that when people do ask questions, folks, when people do ask questions, the fact is even if we're disinterested in it, somebody may something, one of your peers out here may say something that is of value to you. When we're talking about finding value in love, there's a lot of wisdom out here in the audience, and somebody may say something that is of benefit to you.
Perfect. Okay. Let's start with anyone who has a question, and Risto is going to be running to you. Who's got a question? Anything about right over here, Risto. Attaboy.
My question is, what is your best piece of advice in opening up spiritual conversations or faith-based conversations with your significant other?
Okay, let's just start with, so the question is, right, how to engage, cultivate into a spiritual conversation with your partner, significant other. So the one thing I'd say is, what was the one thing that Risto held in the middle here as he stood? His heart. Whenever we talk about anything about our spiritual experience, it needs to come from our heart. If it comes from our head, we act like a know-it-all. When it comes from our head, a person can feel left out or put off, or like they're being told they don't know what they're doing. The one thing I would say, what did John Chrysostom say? When you find the gate to the heart, you find the gate to the kingdom. So very often, when you share something vulnerable about your life that the Lord helped you with, your lived experience of the Lord helping your heart, your life, your struggle, is one of the best ways people can understand that the Lord has something valuable for them. Does that make sense to you, right? We're not going to give them all kinds of facts and all kinds of, Old Testament, New Testament, not all that necessarily, as much as our story with the story of how God is in our lives personally.
I think, too, when it comes to sharing your spirituality with the other person, is that the question, spirituality? If your spirituality, your faith, is part and parcel of who you are, if you're going to maintain a relationship with somebody else, that part of you has to be shared if they're going to fully know who you are. And so it should just be a natural extension of the relationship. This is me in total. And if that person, if the heart is connected, they want to know that dimension of you, because that is going to bring you closer. If you keep one part of yourself sequestered away, it's not a complete relationship. And I have to say, I think for us, one of the best parts for us is prayer, corporate prayer. That conversation just flows.
I was just going to tag team on my beautiful wife here. The fact is I learned a long time ago that sometimes take a risk. If you're going to hone a good, healthy relationship, whether it be significant other or a good friend, you've got to take a risk. And you've got to realize that if it's an authentic relationship, then sometimes the harder questions can be answered.
3 things I think can be really powerful. Because our life is a story, and you all have stories. And a lot of times we're not allowed to tell our stories of how God has impacted us or how we've been impacted by people who have hurt us because they're supposed to represent God in His church. So 3 things. All of you guys, check this out. Maybe we can have a conversation today instead of dancing. Can you imagine having this conversation instead of dancing, having these conversations? Number 1, think of your story and what one person has impacted your spiritual walk with God. One story. It could be grandfather, person, a teacher. Second thing, what book or what reading has inspired you, and to share that story about what about that reading has inspired you. And the third thing is, can you talk about an event that has really ignited this beauty and this love for God, and that starts a conversation, and that can build up. So I think those 3 things that we can be curious about, that can be really helpful.
Right, next question.
Thank you.
Yes, right in the middle, right there. Coming to you.
How do you go about navigating toxic relationships that come in the Orthodox community? Like romantic relationships, both
Wait.
are Orthodox, but can still end up toxic. How do we navigate that?
So let me see if I've got that. How do you navigate a relationship within the church, but the person is toxic?
Yes.
Okay. So, that's a good question.
We have a hazmat uniform here. He's put it on. No, just kidding.
And we ask ourselves, should I stay or should I go? And you just say, go, 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 go. You get out of that, baby.
So, right on. So on the journey to the heart, when we think about, because we're looking for getting love right and we're looking for a healthy relationship, the fact that we could even identify toxic means that God's answering our prayers already. What we don't want is sometimes there's great chemistry in love when my toxic hooks up with your toxic. And so it's very discerning. So I love your question. The gate to the heart is going to be that and this is where the Lord comes into play. Because otherwise, we'll just be making choices for ourselves, going, that kind of works for me, or I could live without that, or, he doesn't have to really love me that much, or whatever. And this is this is a choice. But when we learn to find the path to the one who gets love right? See where I'm pointing? The one who gets love right, the more connected we are to the one who gets love right, the more we're going to have like a radar to make sure that we have the boundaries to preserve and protect getting love right. So the shortest answer to your question is, keep working on your true self, connected to the true God, and you will develop boundaries. And saying no is one of the greatest spiritual gifts out there. It takes courage, and keep the radar going on what's toxic and what's not. Love your question. Thank you.
So there's also something in a formula. There's a formula in Scripture that's given to us in the Gospels. Basic. If it's toxic or there's an issue, you take it to the person. If it doesn't work, you get a friend to go with you, have the conversation with the person. It may mean that if that doesn't work, then it says take it to the church. At that point, if it doesn't even resolve through the church, then Jesus just says, have nothing more to do with that individual. Hopefully, it'll never get to that point. Hopefully, one simple conversation between you and the individual could work. But there's this formula.
Next question. Yes, over here. Oh, over there first. No, go where you're going, and then over here after that.
Hi, so I just wanted to ask, also if everyone could, if you're just talking too, just turn your seat this way. It might be easier to pay attention to the panels. That'd be kind of cool.
Woo, baby! Our new junior member of the Family Wellness Team, right there. Okay.
Thank you. Welcome now, ladies and gentlemen. No, sorry. Okay, so what prayers, I guess, or what are some good prayers from saints or church fathers that you could pray for your future spouse, or just for, I guess, enlightenment later on, just for something for God to show the path? What are some prayers from saints or church fathers?
Here's my go-to prayer. It's from St. Gregory Palamas. 5 words. You say it 1 time, 2 times, 10 times, 100 times, and you wait. Lord, help me to see. Enlighten my darkness. You practice that, and you open your heart to hear how God is inspiring you to truly see, then that toxic thing that you asked, sweet friend, you will see, don't do it anymore. If someone's not interested in responding to you and meeting you in that sacred space, you can't force them to love you. Yeah.
I also had a great talk with Father Gary today, and he shared with me this really great question, which I think we can ask to God and to ourselves. And that is 3 words. Is it wise? Is it wise? So like on every discussion that we're having, if every conversation we had, if every encounter we had, if every decision we made, we kind of stopped and we asked that question to our Lord, is it wise? Help me to find out. Thanks, Father Gary, for sharing that with me, because it made a lot of sense.
Good. And then the one thing I would, what's your name? Manoli. Awesome question. One thing I'd say, and some of you have heard me speak, have heard me quote this because it's in every PowerPoint in the whole universe of what I do. And it happens to be a lived experience of mine. So it's from Psalm 139. And my lived experience is when I was 25, plenty of dating going on, but the whole idea of finding one person literally was a mind bender for me. One person, I'm going to know who they are, and that's going to be okay, and it's going to work out. I couldn't even make sense of that. And I literally was like in this universe of like, I was like in space and couldn't see the planet. I couldn't figure out how to even find, like, I wasn't even eager to find the person. I just didn't think you could know how to ever get there. So it was a mystery to me. And the Lord gave me Psalm 139. The whole psalm is awesome because the psalm is the whole story of how God's with us when we get love wrong. And he still loves us because it says when we make our bed in hell, he's with us. And then it says at the very end, and this is the prayer, I turned it into a prayer when I was 25, which means in 1985, this became Papa George's prayer. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. He has found a way to hear that from me and guide me and answer it and calm me and illuminate and give me gifts of love. As I said, here it all is. I'm not sure how to get there, but lead me.
Say it one more time.
Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me and lead me in the way everlasting. It's the last two verses of Psalm 139.
One of the reasons why I ended up finding this woman and marrying her, best thing that ever happened to me, and then I'll put my kids in there too. But anyway, is because I had that list, folks. It was like, the person I choose is going to look like this, behave like this, act like this. And I finally said one day as I was going through the list, I said, you know, Lord, I can't do this anymore because it ain't working. So I threw the list away and I said, I have one piece, here's the only agenda I have. And God put it on my heart. It's in Scripture again, like George gave you one. God said, be still and know that I am God. And I said, so, what I would like, Lord, is this, is if you just send me a godly woman. That's all I'm asking for, is a godly woman. And within 2 months, I got a phone call from a beloved friend who we both knew and went to school together, but we never knew each other. There was 10 years of not knowing each other, even though at times, 10 years before, we had been in the same room together. Be still and know that I am God. Send me a godly woman. I get a phone call from a dear friend, Greek Orthodox friend, and he says, I need to introduce you to somebody who's looking into the Orthodox Christian Church. We were married 9 months later.
I'm going to pigtail off on Father Jim's because we all have a lot of to-do lists in our lives. And you guys all, in your minds and hearts, might have that list of the things that you want in a spouse or in that person that you want to spend the rest of your life with. And I'm here to tell you that that person is never, ever going to live up to the list. But what's going to happen is if you turn that list around and you say to yourself, what is my not to-do list, or what is my, who is that in my life list, but it's going to be my to-be list. And if you start to think about what are the 3 things that you really want to be in your own life, like if being an Orthodox Christian is really, really important to you, and that's really important to find in somebody maybe that might be in this room, you might say to yourself, I want that. I want somebody who's Greek, or I want somebody who's Orthodox, or I want somebody who's tall and blonde and has a full head of hair or pretty much hair. Doesn't matter. Because I'll tell you, on my to-do list, my man was tall, and I got this. But the thing that I just wanted to share with you is how important it is to work on your to-be list. Because if you really want something in your heart, you have to be willing to be that. And so my dad used to always tell me the best litmus test is to find the right person, is to be the right person. And in your quest right now, in this incredible time of relationships and learning about people and exploring these amazing relationships that are in this room today, you will find that if you can be that person, those friendships, those relationships, those connections are going to build you up in friendships that will last a lifetime. And you might not find that perfect spouse in the next few years of your life, but you're working on that journey to love and that journey to finding love right. So anyway, work on your to-be list.
We do have to, we're going to stay close. Georgier is, you have one person waiting, right? Yep, Christo. They were waiting.
So I love coming from these events, and I come from a long way to come to this one, and I think a lot of people do too. I often have fond memories of the people that I meet here, but due to the physical distance, I find that the relationships that you make with people are often very fleeting. Sorry, it's kind of loud. Any recommendations on going the distance and keeping that distance and keeping their relationships? And I say this full well knowing my own cousin is getting married a month from today from someone she met, from a quite distance away. But any recommendations from your end on managing that distance?
Well, let me tell you, I have a really dear friend, Despina Koulianos, who is at Ionian Village. I'll never forget, at IV, I really liked her and she liked me as a friend. And I was the kind of guy that would say, okay, so I said to her, Despina, it's great to meet you. I don't know if I'll ever see you again. And she looked at me and said, what are you talking about? We're friends. And that thing that shook me up, because she helped me realize that relationships take effort. So you can have that, depends who you want to have it with, all of us. And it takes time to stop and connect. It doesn't take that much time, you guys, especially when you connect face to face, heart to heart, whether it's in person or whatever. But you make the effort, and the other one wants to reciprocate. It's a powerful thing.
We are exactly on time at 1 o'clock, so I believe we're going to transition from this moment, and Christo is going to come on up and help us to figure out where we're going from here.
Thanks. Just really quick, I was going to address one thing with Manoli. Practically speaking as well, sometimes folks will say, like you said, what can I pray for? If you go to the saints within the wedding rite, those are good folks to kind of develop friendships with, right? Abraham and Sarah, Joseph and Asenath. The end of the lineage is Joachim and Anna. So historically, there's some couples that we petition if we desire marriage. I just want to balance it though. Some folks may not be called to marriage, right? So if you're not called to marriage, you're not deficient in anything. Identify those men or women with holy tradition that can also mentor you, and identify mentors that persevere in their virginity and in their faith. So always balance it. Marriage is a blessing for some, not for everybody. But either way, look to the saints as examples.